Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of our podcast, and today we're gonna talk about female sexual response cycle. Let's begin. The sexual response cycle is a sequence of changes in body and mind that occur in a person when they become sexually aroused and participate in sexual activities. The sexual response cycle is applicable to any sexual activity, so both sexual intercourse with one or more people as well as masturbation, they both can start the same cycle of reactions. And you might have heard about people named Masters and Johnson, the power couple of human sexuality research and also sexual therapy. Their lives were portrayed in a TV show which was called The Masters of Sex. So if you didn't know they were real, here I am to tell you they were real. William Masters and Virginia Johnson were kind of pioneers in human sexuality research and therapy. So until now, their works are the basis for the contemporary therapy. And also, they were working in the more or less the same time that Alfred Kinsey. So you probably heard about Kinsey's work. Also, in terms of sexual response model, Masters and Johnson proposition is so far the most popular, and even though we know way more about sexual functioning and we have much more research than they had in 70s and 80s, the core aspects of sexual response haven't changed that much. So we are working with their sexual response model. So sexual response cycle includes 4 phases. The first one is excitement. The second one is plateau. The third one is orgasm. And the final one, the fourth one, is resolution. And regardless the gender, sexual response phases are exactly the same. And some people say that the sexual response model is more applicable to men than women. Yes and no, I wouldn't totally disagree. But so far, this is the best model that can help us describe sexual response in general. So even though there are flaws in the model, we are still using it for men and women. But what I want to say, given that sexual response in women is a little different than in men, and also different changes are happening in the bodies of men and women, to avoid confusion, in this episode I will focus exclusively on women. However, sometimes I will refer to men as well, but I will focus mostly on women. And in one of the next episodes will be exclusively on men's sexual response. So let's begin with the first one, which is the excitement stage. The general purpose of this stage is to prepare the body for sexual intercourse. So during this stage, our blood starts to pump faster, so the heart rate and blood pressure increases, breath is faster, and muscle tension increases as well. Also, during the excitement stage, some visible changes are present. Possibly reactions that are the easiest to spot are hardened and erect nipples. And sometimes, but not always, it's not always happening, the skin may become flushed and a bit more red. But these changes are more subtle, so the lack of them doesn't mean that this stage is incomplete or flawed or something. No, nothing like this. But every person is different and some variability is normal, but 2 most visible changes are erect nipples and flushed skin. During the excitement phase, the blood flows into the genitals and it's resulting in swelling of the women's clitoris and labia minora, which become more sensitive. And finally, because the excitement stage is a preludium to the sexual intercourse. So obviously the vaginal lubrication begins and the inner part of vagina is getting moist and the visible part of clitoris is enlarging. So these are the greatest changes in body. The interesting part of human sexuality is that excitement stage can be initiated either mentally or physically. And by these, I mean human cognitive abilities and, in general, let's say our brain and the whole neurological system is able to initiate the excitement state. For example, when we watch some arousing content such as porn movies or pictures or strippers and so on. But also, this stage can be initiated physically by touching or kissing. And there is a general consensus that sexual reactions are the result of psychological and somatic interactions. So there is no really need to distinguish them, really. But we just need to know that both ways, so both mental and physical way, is able to start this whole cycle. The time which is necessary to prepare the body for sexual intercourse might differ from person to person. So it is extremely hard to assess the duration of sexual response cycle and each state separately. Also, the methodology we have as researchers is not sufficient to precisely assess it. And, additionally, from the therapeutic standpoint, it's not that important to know the duration of each phase. So there are really more important issues to be researched than know exactly how many minutes it takes to finish the excitement stage. But what is important is that over this stage, the excitement grows gradually, so it takes some time to prepare for the sexual intercourse. And I said that I won't be talking about men today, but I think this is worth noting that in men, sexual response is usually more evident. Namely, men have erections. So while in women, the majority of evident sexual reactions, such as lubrication, is happening inside the genitals. In men, this is very obvious. And for many couples, the most difficult part of sex is the right timing. And especially when they start dating and they are in the process of learning each other's reaction, they usually say that the timing is the greatest issue. And I used to hear quite often that women require hours of foreplay. And this is, of course, a huge exaggeration, but somehow it reflects the difference between men and women. So when men are entering the next stage and they are ready to insertion, women usually, not always, but usually require more time to provide enough lubrication to have a painless sexual contact. And as I said, during the excitement stage, the excitement grows gradually, and when women achieve a certain level of arousal, the excitement stage enters the plateau stage. Not only in women, but we're talking about women, so let's stick to that. During the plateau stage, the body changes that initiated during the excitement stage intensifies, and the vaginal walls continues to swell, and the vagina itself contracts, and also clitoris become highly sensitive. And because this sometimes might be painful to touch, the clitoris retracts a little to avoid a direct stimulation. And the visible changes include more rapid breathing and muscle tightening. And speaking of muscle tightening, during the plateau stage, the opening of the vagina reduces its diameter, and something that's called an orgasmic platform is formed. And technically, the orgasmic platform is a tissue, and it's formed by swelling and tightening of the outer vagina. And this formation might be related to the elevated uterus, because during this stage the uterus elevates farther into the pelvis, which is known as tenting, so that's what we call it, and this can create more space within the vagina. But these technical issues are not crucial, because there's a huge variability in anatomy of women, and also Also, research are usually conducted on small samples, so we need to take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, according to Masters and Johnson, during an orgasm, women experience rhythmic contractions of this tissue. That's why they name it as such, the orgasmic platform. And now, when sexual intercourse continues, the intense stimulation leads to the end of plateau phase and to the next stage, which is orgasm. But before I get to the definition of orgasm and break it into pieces, I want to tackle one more thing, the mystical G-spot or the Grafenberg spot. The G-spot is supposedly located inside the vagina on the front wall, approximately 2 to 3 inches from the entrance. And although the existence of the G-spot has never been formally proven, about 60% of women reported that stimulation of this area gives them some pleasure. So at least we can say that some women report to have it, but formally it's never been proven. And the G-spot is supposed to have a very rich innervation, but it is also very, very special tissue, which is usually more sensitive to pressure than rubbing. So the traditional intercourse, when the penis moves in and out, might fail to stimulate this area, or maybe insufficient. The stimulation may be insufficient. So some women declare that the cowgirl position enables them to stimulate this area better. So they can regulate the speed, the depth, and the angle, making sure that G-spot is accurately located and stimulated. But of course, also the manual stimulation is usually reported as the most efficient when it comes to G-spot stimulation. However, as I said, not everybody enjoys this kind of stimulation. So if you don't feel pleasure where the G-spot is thought to be, it's totally okay, because, it's only 60% of women. Okay, so now to the orgasm. Orgasm is still, despite all the methodology we have, it is still the neurological mystery to us. So we are not entirely sure what happens with our brain and our body and how exactly this inner plane leads to orgasm. However, what we know is that orgasm can be described as sudden discharge of accumulated sexual tension during the sexual response cycle. And it's resulting in rhythmic muscular contractions in the pelvic region. So there are about 20-something definitions of orgasm in the clinical literature, but I guess that one is fair enough to know what it is. So we just need to remember that it's sudden discharge of accumulated sexual tension, and that's fine. Okay, so during orgasm, the feeling of sudden and intense pleasure is observed, as well as an abrupt increase in pulse rate and blood pressure. So everything is getting faster and faster compared to the previous stages. Also, during orgasm, contractions of the lower vagina are present, and all these body reactions are related to the feeling of pleasure and ecstasy. During orgasm, the so-called sex flush is visible, not in everybody again, but it's often visible. Which is a redding of skin, so similar to this one we get after a hard workout. So it's again visible outside of the body, it's like on the skin. But not everybody experiences it, so this is but it's absolutely normal body reaction. What's interesting, orgasm in women can be interrupted anytime, while in men it's not possible. So from some point, men cannot control the sexual response cycle and have to finish the stage with ejaculation, while in women it can be stopped anytime. And speaking of ejaculation, there is a phenomenon called a female ejaculation, and Masters and Johnson deny the existence of female ejaculation, or maybe it would be better to say that did not deny it, but they believed it's urine. So it's So according to them, according to their observation, a female ejaculation was just related to peeing because of muscle contraction. Today, we know that female ejaculation is not urine, but we still do not know the physiological function of ejaculation in women. So, contrary to men, women can experience orgasm without ejaculation. So, this doesn't highly correlate with orgasm. So, this might be some side effect of orgasm, let's say, but there is no clear evidence nor scientific consensus on its function. But what we know is that it does exist, and it is also normal body reaction to pleasure. When it comes to the source of orgasm, women can achieve orgasm by stimulating different areas of the body, not only through the vaginal intercourse, so not only through the most common one. However, of course, the vaginal intercourse vaginal orgasm is the most common. This is, just to be clear, the result of stimulation of vagina by an insertion of penis or another object. So that one is pretty clear. Another type of orgasm is a so-called clitoral orgasm, and this one is achieved through stimulation of clitoris. And here is the good moment to mention that clitoris is the most erogenous area in female body, and it's quite a complex structure. Its size and sensitivity can vary, so we don't really have a precise number. But what's interesting, it has approximately 8 to 10,000 nerve endings. So this is really, really sensitive. But this number is highly imprecise and can vary. So we don't need to stick to that one. But what many people don't know is that the visible part of clitoris, called the clitoral glans or the head, this is just the small part of clitoris. The vast majority of this organ, including the body and the roots, they are located inside of the body and they are completely not visible from the outside. And for a long time, it was believed that only the head of clitoris is prone to the stimulation. But now evidence suggests that the clitoris as a whole can be stimulated. So that's why the sonic vibrators become more and more popular, because the sonic stimulation can get much deeper into the body than traditional manual vibrators. So so far we know that the whole clitoris, which is pretty huge structure, it can be stimulated as not only from the outside but also from some kind of from the inside. And I want to hold on here for a moment, because orgasm is certainly the peak of pleasure. So for many years we used to focus on how to achieve orgasm, how to treat disorders which disable people from achieving it, and so on. But at the same time, we depreciated sexual intercourses that do not end with orgasm. And there are many reasons why people do not achieve orgasm. So I don't want to discuss it now, but focusing on orgasm and chasing it to get it at all costs paradoxically serves against us. So in therapy, even in sex therapy, the greater focus is put on the pleasure of the process itself, because all 4 stages of sexual response cycle are source of pleasure or can be source of pleasure, and all of them can be enjoyed equally, not just 8 seconds of orgasm. So the whole process and the whole sexual intercourse can be source of pleasure, and there's no need to focus so much on the orgasm itself. At least you don't have to chase it while every sexual contact. So if you don't get it or your partner doesn't get it once or twice, that's okay, because there are so many factors that can impact our ability to achieve orgasm that sometimes it's just not possible because we're too stressed, maybe we're too tired, maybe we're sick, and so on and so on. The final stage of sexual response cycle is called resolution, or sometimes it's also called the refractory period. And this stage is present always at the end of sexual response cycle, whether you achieve an orgasm or not. And here's the important part. Men, after achieving orgasm, so in other words, men after ejaculation, immediately enter the resolution stage. While women, after achieving orgasm, they are physiologically able to achieve another orgasm. So this third stage in women, the orgasm stage, has potential to be repetitive, and men can have only one orgasm during sexual intercourse. As I mentioned before, for many couples, timing is the greatest problem in sex life. And usually, men are able to achieve orgasm faster than women, and after ejaculation they enter the resolution stage, which means that the body and the genitals come back to their regular size, and they are no longer sensitive to stimulation. So even with the greatest genuine will, men are not able to penetrate women because they need some resting time after ejaculation, and depending on age and several more factors, the resolution stage can last between several minutes to several hours. And the resolution stage in women, regardless of number of orgasms, means that the genitals come back to normal position and size, the body starts to flow a bit slower, the breath and heart rate is gradually getting slower, the skin is coming back to the normal color, so all the changes in body are coming back to the normal stages. And while in men this period takes some time, sometimes several minutes, sometimes several hours, but this period takes some time, and there is no way to have an erection when this period is not over. Women usually need less time, or sometimes no time at all, to be aroused again, so they can go through the whole cycle again. So as you can see, indeed, from the biological standpoint, there is also some issues with timing, because female and male body react differently, but you can work it out. So it doesn't mean that women are always in the worst position. No, you can work it out, but it's necessary to understand the changes in body, and it's necessary to learn our bodies to know how we react, when we react, and what changes can we expect. And I think that's basically all I wanted to tell you today. So I know it's a bit technical and lengthy episode, but this sexual response cycle is important for further understanding sexual disorders and therapy methods, which I will talk about in other episodes. So that's all for today, and because it is the beginning of June, so I wish you all happy Pride. Enjoy the weekend, and until next time, thank you for today.